Okay, welcome to the summer curriculum overview. My name is Mike DeMarco. I'm Higher Achievement Director of Program Quality and Evaluation, based out of our national office, and I'll be taking you through this training today. During this training, we'll be going over the structure of a curriculum unit, the components of a lesson plan. I'll talk with you about our 4 higher achievement social justice themes, our red flag tool, and do a high-level overview of different teaching techniques, high-quality implementation, as well as point you to some of the resources you'll have available to you this summer. So higher achievements curriculum, our summer academy curriculum is designed to introduce material from upcoming grade levels. The material addresses content that will be taught in the upcoming school year. It is not a review, though most units contain some review to refresh the memories of scholars so that they can work on the new skills that the curriculum will teach. There are 20 lessons per unit, and the lessons are based on Common Core standards, and they're cumulative. In most cases, the lessons build upon one another towards a project of some kind at the end of the year. Higher Achievement seeks to accomplish a few things through our curriculum. First is strengthening existing skills and building new skills. We seek to build confidence in scholars' beliefs in their own academic abilities and potential for academic growth through the access to our challenging curriculum. And finally, expand our scholars' critical thinking skills through our curricula and through our social justice themes, which are interwoven throughout each lesson. The structure of our curriculum unit, the first 3 weeks, our scholars will take a pretest during the first week in math and literature only. So you'll talk with your center directors about when that will happen exactly, but know that that will happen during the first week. Also during the first 3 weeks, you may review some prerequisite skills that scholars will need to know to be able to successfully complete the units for the summer. You'll be introducing new material and important content to your scholars, as well as providing practice and opportunities for scholars to participate in hands-on activities. Our curriculum is very engaging. There's a lot of small group work, and there's a lot of hands-on activities for our scholars. And finally, the first 3 weeks will also begin introducing some of the projects that our curriculum builds towards throughout the summer. Now in weeks 3 through 6, that's when you're getting into the meat of our lessons. Often in this portion of the units, you'll be providing interim assessments through a variety of different activities. So depending on which subject you're teaching, there'll be writing projects, there might be midsummer content quizzes, simplified practice projects, so leading up to the large project at the end of the summer. And there'll be different demonstrations and smaller scale experiments. Throughout these different interim assessments, these are the more formal assessments, but there'll be informal assessments throughout the class as well when you're doing different checking for understanding techniques. But throughout these different assessments, you'll want to keep in mind where you're seeing scholars struggle, and as I talk about the red flag tool towards the end of this presentation, you'll want to think about how these assessments can inform your use of that tool. Also during these weeks 3 through 6, you'll begin applying the content knowledge that scholars are learning in your course throughout the unit to the projects that they'll be working on at the end of the summer. And finally, during this time, you'll obviously be completing final projects. Okay, so our lesson plans are divided into 4 different sections. There's a preparation, into, through, and beyond. In the preparation section, this is the section that provides the teacher with all the necessary information that he or she will need to teach before the lesson begins. So it includes an overview, scholar objectives, materials that you'll need, vocabulary that will be important for you to put on the board for scholars to learn. The into section constitutes the first 5 to 10 minutes of the lesson and is used to engage or hook the scholars into the day's lesson. The through section, this is the body of the lesson, and this will include several different components depending on the lesson. It may include lecture, though this is often kept to a minimum. And the emphasis in this section is on skill introduction and guided practice, scaffolded activities, modeling, discussion and questioning, completion of the project components. And finally, there's the beyond section. During this section, this is a time for scholars to reflect, to check for understanding, to prepare for future lessons, make connections in the classroom or beyond the classroom, or extend the lesson if you're seeing scholars really interested in a topic. It also provides a time for you as a teacher to reflect on the effectiveness of the lesson and what you can do better next time as you're engaging your scholars in these units. Throughout your curriculum, you'll see our 4 social justice themes interwoven. Each grade has a particular social justice theme that is throughout all of the subjects. So in 5th grade, our 5th grade lessons focus on voice, which we define as the right and responsibility of expression. Our 6th grade units focus on justice, which is the consistent application of fairness. 7th grade focuses on solidarity, the community unity that produces positive outcomes for all. And 8th grade focuses on freedom, which is the ability to make informed choices. So you'll see this in your lessons. You'll hear these repeated at center and community meeting, gathering time. You'll see it on posters throughout our achievement centers. But just know that depending on which grade you'll teach, you'll see this really heavily put into your curriculum. So one of the things you'll want to think of is, since this is so heavily interwoven into our curriculum, is how you can implement the social justice themes in your classroom. So the best thing you can do is really elevate these social justice themes. Think about ways that you can connect discussions and activities to these themes. So these themes, can often represent difficult concepts for middle schoolers. So think about how you can connect them with classroom activities, readings, discussions, projects. That's mostly going to be spelled out in your curriculum. Think about these themes when you're making your classroom rules and procedures, when you're interacting with scholars, when you're participating or maybe even leading community meeting or gathering time. Often centers will have time set aside for current events to discuss them. And think about how these themes will fit with those current events. And even with goal setting with your scholars, there's a lot of ways that these themes can fit into goal setting activities as well. So we don't want these themes to just be off on their own. We want them to be really interwoven and intentionally put into activities that our scholars are doing this summer. Okay, lesson planning. Lesson planning is, as anyone with teaching experience knows, is critical for a successful implementation of lessons. I can promise you that when I come in or another staff member comes in to observe, I'll know within 5 minutes whether that teacher has planned that lesson ahead of time. When transitions are smooth, when materials are laid out, when there's clear instructions, when the agenda's posted, that's when I'll know that lesson planning has happened. So what do we mean by lesson planning? That's taking time ahead of time to determine the lesson's objectives, to prepare materials, prepare any supplemental materials or extension activities for scholars who are struggling or scholars who can go deeper on a topic. And also there may be times that you're running behind and you need to compress 2 lessons into one. That takes a lot of lesson planning, so that lesson compression and being intentional with that as well. That all goes into lesson planning. And there are guides for you available on ISIS, our internal website, to help you with lesson planning as well. And your center staff will be able to show you that. Checking for understanding. Checking for understanding. These are the deliberate opportunities you provide to your scholars to demonstrate understanding. There are techniques provided for you in your lessons, plus those that you choose to employ from your own knowledge and experience. And these will all yield really important information that you can use to decide how to proceed with your lesson, and will also simultaneously allow scholars to practice the skills that you're teaching. So we really want to make sure that we're not just running through lessons, but we're really stopping and checking for understanding, and noting when and where scholars are struggling, and determining how we can best help them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with our red flag tool. So how and when do we check for understanding? We check for understanding before, during, and after the lesson. So it's a cyclical process that involves using different techniques to monitor our scholars' progress with materials that's being presented to them, and you as the teacher making adjustments to your lesson in response to the information you're receiving. So what does this include? This includes before the lesson, anticipating any challenges that may arise with difficult concepts, preparing to deal with these situations before they come up, so that pre-lesson planning. During the lesson, it includes ongoing checks of scholar understanding, and that means making adjustments to a lesson based on using these different techniques. So sometimes that means moving ahead, going faster. Your scholars really grasp it. You can move on and go a little faster. Sometimes that means taking a little bit more time during that lesson or a subsequent lesson to really review some challenging concepts during the lesson. And after you're done teaching, that involves, if there's any written assignments, that involves any exit slips, reviewing these and checking to make sure that scholars are truly understanding the materials. And like I said, throughout the curriculum, there's different examples listed, and you'll see them as you review your curriculum. So they can be these opportunities for checking for understanding. It can be formal and informal. It can be formative assessments, but one thing is that it should be a cumulative process. It shouldn't just be that you're doing it once. It should be throughout the lesson you're doing this. I wanted to just quickly go over Bloom's taxonomy. For those of you who are familiar with it, this is something that is often used in teaching, and something we really want to stress using with our scholars. So Benjamin Bloom, in 1956, headed a group of educational psychologists who developed a classification of levels of intellectual behavior that was important to learning. Since then, Bloom's taxonomy has evolved and been modernized, but at its core, it's remained an essential component in teaching and learning. So you'll see this pyramid here, and there are 6 different levels, and each level is associated with a verb that describes what a learner is doing to demonstrate understanding of a concept, skill, or academic content. So as the learner moves from the bottom of the pyramid to the top, the level of intellectual behavior becomes more complex. So understanding is a more complex behavior than remembering, but not quite as complex as applying. You'll see as you move up like that. So as a teacher, as you introduce a skill to your scholars, they may, you may prefer to accept demonstrations of the first 2 to 3 levels of intellectual behavior right when a scholar is first learning a skill. But as they become more comfortable with it, and as they're working on writing essays and completing projects, or doing more complex activities, that's where you'll want to push them up the pyramid to that analyzing, evaluating, creating level. And that's how we'll really challenge our scholars and move them forward. Similarly, if you have scholars who quickly grasp the concept while the rest of your class is struggling, you'll want to look for opportunities to move them up the pyramid. Maybe while other scholars are working on remembering or understanding, you're going to have scholars who are grasping that material more quickly, looking at applying it or analyzing why this is the case. So here you'll see different examples of how we can use each of these levels. So you can see on the left column, there's the level of intellectual behavior. In the middle, there are some sample question stems and activities associated with each level. So I like to use these sample question stems to formulate discussion questions in the classroom. So for example, when you're first introducing a skill and you're looking at the remembering phase, let's say you're teaching a literature class and you might be asking, what happened after blank, after a character did this, and you're just really asking the scholars to remember the plot. You're checking for reading comprehension, or how many how many people lived in the house. This is really just very basic, um, basically asking scholars to recall information or remember information. Then you'll see as you move to the understanding level, can you write in your own words? Can you write a brief outline? So now we're taking it from simply remembering a task to summarizing and beginning to paraphrase. The applying level. Do you know another instance where could this have happened in? Now we're taking the knowledge that they've learned in the book or the material that they've been learning and beginning to apply it to other areas. Analyzing. Which events could have happened? If blank happened, what might the ending have been? So now we're having scholars analyze material and think of hypotheticals in different situations. When we get to the evaluating level, you have scholars judging the value of, defending their position. So they're taking a stand. They digested different information, and now they're beginning to take a stand and defend opinions. And finally, the top level, the creating phase. So creating something new from all the material that they have. So can you create a project that describes this, this process in science? Can you create an experiment? How many ways can you, factor these numbers, that sort of thing? Can you develop a proposal for a more efficient way to map your community? That might be something you would use in social studies. So these sample stems are really important. I would suggest these are available on ISIS as well, our internal system, and I would suggest printing these out and having these available for you while you're teaching to make sure that you're asking questions from different levels, really engaging your scholars at different levels of thinking throughout your lessons. Okay, our red flag tool, this is something I've talked about a few times when we were talking about checking for understanding and using our assessments. Our red flag tool is a new tool that we started this past after-school academy. It serves as an early warning indicator system in higher achievement. So higher achievement is a very data-driven organization. We evaluate scholars' grades and test scores. We're really trying and target our approach to be individualized in the support that we provide to scholars. So one of the challenges with waiting for report cards to come out is that if a scholar gets a C or a D or an F in math class, the grade's already happened and it's too late. So this red flag tool is correlated to Common Core standards, and the idea is that we want to specifically target skill areas where scholars are struggling before those struggles show up on the report cards. So these tools are integrated into our math and literature curriculum, and they're linked to specific and targeted supplemental work to support the areas the scholar needs improvement. So if you look on the right here, you see that there's a sample from our curriculum, and you'll see this is a 5th grade math curriculum, I believe, and you will see that there are different flags. There's a flag with a little 1 in it and a flag with a 7 next to different sections. These questions are questions that relate to Common Core skills. So if you see scholars particularly struggling with the questions that you're asking, there's a bunch of 7s on this page, and if you're seeing a scholar struggle with the skills related to number 7, you'll go to the end of your lesson, and you'll see this is the red flag tool that's available at every lesson, and it's number 1 through 13. So these are the numbers that correlate to the flags that were integrated into lessons. So number 7 over here relates to place value on the right-hand side. So if you're seeing a scholar really struggle with the concept of place value, you'll write their name on the bottom here in the place value section. Hand that to your center director, who will then ensure that that scholar gets the correct and targeted place value supplemental work that they'll be able to work on during the summer to really boost that area the scholar is struggling in. So this red flag tool, like I said, is implemented in both math and literature curriculum, and It's a way to really preempt any academic decline and really target our individualized support for scholars. So please be sure to use this when you're checking for understanding and seeing scholars struggle. Be sure to fill out this tool for them as well so we can get them the specific supplemental work that they need. So individualization is related to our red flag tool. It's something that's, I think, so important in higher achievement. So individualization means, when you're lesson planning and implementing your lessons, really doing it in a way that responds to scholars' academic and engagement needs. So that relates to scholars' skill proficiency, it relates to scholars' interests, and their learning styles as well. So tailoring your lessons to really fit these different needs. So what are some good individualization practices? In general, there are a number of great practices that can reinforce the skills in each lesson and increase scholar engagement in the learning process. So here are just a few options for you to keep in mind when you think about how to individualize your lessons. You'll want to use introductory activities that relate to the skill being taught and engage scholars' interests. Use questioning techniques designed to encourage critical thinking. This is a chance for you that you can also weave in the social justice themes. You'll want to think of strategies that gauge background knowledge, skill acquisition, skill mastery, and skill retainment. Use audio, visual, tactile, other sensory engagement materials to aid in teaching a skill. Maybe recall and review skills from previous lessons. Use games and competitions that help scholars practice skills from a specific lesson. And use the ongoing independent projects that scholars are working on. So we want to really focus on high-quality implementation of our curriculum and lessons this summer. So here are a few strategies that we've put together over the past few years that have really separated the teachers that really implement our curriculum with the highest of quality. So please follow your curriculum and take the time to plan your lessons. Like I said, I will know instantly when I walk into a room whether the teacher has taken the time to do that lesson planning ahead of time. Think of ways to strengthen critical thinking skills for our scholars through our social justice themes. Utilize different checking for understanding techniques, questioning, and individualization practices that respond to scholars' needs. And where you're seeing scholars struggling, be sure to fill out a red flag tool for them. Be consistent and consistently utilize classroom procedures and appropriate behavior management techniques. We'll be reviewing this at summer teacher training, and there'll be an opportunity to review with your center staff what the behavior management plan and strategy is at each center. This is important. There are a lot of materials that you'll have in your lessons. Very engaging curriculum, a lot of hands-on work. Know how and when to ask for materials. It's important that you have everything you need to have this summer. And similarly, ask for support when you need it. There's a lot of support at center. There's support from your center director and center staff. There's support from your fellow teachers, and there's support from me from the national office as well. So be sure to ask for support when you need it. We want to make sure that you have everything you need to be successful this summer. Here you see, this is a copy of our teacher observation form. Throughout the summer, you'll be receiving many observations from center staff or other higher achievement staff members. So please know that these are used as a way to further support you. They're not punitive. And just be on the lookout for people coming through your classroom to observe. Okay, resources. There are a lot of resources for you this summer. As I mentioned, there's ISIS, our internal website. There's this webinar series. You'll also be available at in-person summer teacher training in each affiliate, where you'll also receive a summer teacher training manual with different instructional techniques, and it'll have a lot of these materials that I've gone through in this webinar. So now it's time to prepare to teach. So you should be receiving your information to log into ISIS via the Higher Achievement website. Please, 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 please be sure to read the curriculum you'll be teaching. Read it ahead of time, read it during summer teacher training, read it while you're teaching it. The more familiar you are with it, the smoother your lessons will go. I've also mentioned a bunch of resources that are available on ISIS, so before Summer Academy starts and all the craziness and hectic schedule that brings, please take the time beforehand to explore ISIS and find additional resources you might want to use. There's a lot on there, so take that time to look around. And know that in each summer teacher training, teachers will be asked to prepare to teach a piece of a lesson for your fellow teachers and center staff during summer teacher training. So while you're reviewing your curriculum, think about what you'll want to be teaching. If you have any questions, like I said, you have a lot of people to support you. You have your center staff, you have your fellow teachers, you have the director of the site operations in each city. But you can always reach out to me as well. So my name is Mike DeMarco. I'm the Higher Achievements Director of Program Quality and Evaluation. This is my email, mdemarco@higherachievement.org. And I can be reached on the phone at 202-375-7708 if you have any questions. Thank you so much. Have a great summer.